Benjamin Bibi Netanyahu, born October 21, 1949, is an Israeli politician, serving as the Prime Minister of Israel since 2022, having previously held the office in 1996 to 1999 and 2009 to 2021. He is chair of the Likud party. Netanyahu is the longest-serving prime minister in Israel's history, having served a total of over 16 years. Born to secular Jewish parents, Netanyahu was raised in West Jerusalem and the United States. He returned to Israel in 1967 to join the Israel Defense Forces and served in the Sayeret Matkal Special Forces as a captain before being honorably discharged. After graduating from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Netanyahu worked for the Boston Consulting Group and moved back to Israel in 1978 to found the Yonni Netanyahu Anti-Terror Institute. Between 1984 to 1988, Netanyahu was Israel's ambassador to the United Nations. Netanyahu rose to prominence after election as chair of Likud in 1993, becoming leader of the opposition. In the 1996 general election, Netanyahu became the first Israeli prime minister elected directly by popular vote, and its youngest. Netanyahu was defeated in the 1999 election and retired from politics, entering the private sector. He returned and served as Minister of Foreign Affairs and Finance, initiating economic reforms, before resigning over the Gaza disengagement plan. Netanyahu returned to lead Likud in 2005 and was leader of the opposition between 2006 to 2009. After the 2009 legislative election, Netanyahu formed a coalition with other right-wing parties and became prime minister again. He led Likud to victory in the 2013 and 2015 elections. Netanyahu made his closeness to Donald Trump, a friend since the 1980s, central to his appeal from 2016. During Trump's presidency, the U.S. recognized Jerusalem as capital of Israel, Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, and brokered the Abraham Accords, normalization agreements between Israel and the Arab world. Netanyahu has faced criticism over expanding Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank, deemed illegal under international law. In 2019, Netanyahu was indicted on charges of breach of trust, bribery, and fraud, and relinquished all ministerial posts, except Prime Minister. The 2018 to 2022 Israeli political crisis led to a rotation agreement between Netanyahu and Benny Gantz. This collapsed in 2020, leading to a March 2021 election. In June 2021, Netanyahu was removed from the premiership, before returning after the 2022 election. Netanyahu's coalition pursued judicial reform, which was met with protests in early 2023. In October 2023, Israel suffered a large-scale attack by Hamas-led Palestinian groups, triggering the Israel-Hamas war. Due to a failure to anticipate the attack, Netanyahu has been criticized for presiding over Israel's biggest intelligence failure in 50 years, and has faced protests calling for his removal. Netanyahu's government has been accused of genocide, culminating in the South Africa v. Israel case before the International Court of Justice in December 2023. In May 2024, Karim Khan, the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, announced his intention to apply for an arrest warrant for Netanyahu, and other members of his cabinet, for war crimes and crimes against humanity, as part of the ICC investigation in Palestine. Netanyahu was born in 1949 in Tel Aviv. His mother, Tzila Siegel, 1912–2000, was born in Petah Tikva in the Ottoman Empire's Mutasarrafate of Jerusalem, and his father, Warsaw-born Benzion Netanyahu, N.E. Miliakowski, 1910–2012, was a historian specializing in the Jewish Golden Age of Spain. His paternal grandfather, Nathan Miliakowski, was a rabbi and Zionist writer. When Netanyahu's father immigrated to Mandatory Palestine, he Hebraized his surname from Miliakowski to Netanyahu, meaning God has given. While his family is predominantly Ashkenazi, he has said that a DNA test revealed him to have some Sephardic ancestry. He claims descent from the Vilna Gaon. Netanyahu was the second of 3 children. He was initially raised and educated in Jerusalem, where he attended Henrietta Zold Elementary School. A copy of his evaluation from his 6th grade teacher Ruth Rubenstein indicated that Netanyahu was courteous, polite, and helpful, that he was responsible and punctual, and that he was friendly, disciplined, cheerful, brave, active, and obedient. Between 1956 and 1958, and again from 1963 to 1967, his family lived in the United States in Cheltenham Township, Pennsylvania, a suburb of Philadelphia, while Father Benzion Netanyahu taught at Dropsy College. Benjamin attended and graduated from Cheltenham High School and was active in the debate club, chess club, and soccer. He and his brother Yonatan grew dissatisfied with what they saw as the superficial way of life they encountered in the area, including the prevalent youth counterculture movement and the liberal sensibilities of the Reform Synagogue, Temple Judea of Philadelphia, that the family attended. I have great respect for the unit. This is a unit that changes the reality of our lives even though its actions are a secret. Although it is a small unit, it influences all branches of the military. My service in the unit strengthened my understanding of the risks involved behind approving operations and the risks that fighters are taking on. It is tangible and not theoretical for me. Benjamin Netanyahu, on Sayeret Matkal, Ma'ariv 2007. After graduating from high school in 1967, Netanyahu returned to Israel to enlist in the Israel Defense Forces. He trained as a combat soldier and served for 5 years in a special forces unit of the IDF, Sayeret Matkal. He took part in numerous cross-border raids during the 1967-70 War of Attrition, including the March 1968 Battle of Karamat, when the IDF attacked Jordan to capture PLO leader Yasser Arafat but were repulsed with heavy casualties, rising to become a team leader in the unit. He was wounded in combat on multiple occasions. He was involved in many other missions, including the 1968 Israeli raid on Lebanon and the rescue of the hijacked Sabena Flight 571 in May 1972, in which he was shot in the shoulder. He was discharged from active service in 1972 but remained in the Sayeret Matkal reserves. Following his discharge, he left to study in the United States but returned in October 1973 to serve in the Yom Kippur War. He took part in special forces raids along the Suez Canal against Egyptian forces before leading a commando attack deep inside Syrian territory, the details of which remain classified today. Netanyahu returned to the United States in late 1972 to study architecture at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. After briefly returning to Israel to fight in the Yom Kippur War, he returned to the United States and, under the name Ben Nidi, completed a bachelor's degree in architecture in February 1975 and earned a master's degree from the MIT Sloan School of Management in June 1976. Concurrently, he was studying towards a doctorate in political science, until his studies were broken off by the death of his brother in the Entebbe raid. At MIT, Netanyahu studied a double load while simultaneously taking courses at Harvard University, completing a master's degree in 2.5 years, despite taking a break to fight in the Yom Kippur War. Professor Leon B. Groisse at MIT recalled, "He did superbly. He was very bright, organized, strong, powerful. He knew what he wanted to do and how to get it done." At that time he changed his name to Benjamin ben Nitai, Nitai, a reference to both Mount Nitai and to the eponymous Jewish sage Nitai of Arbela, was a pen name often used by his father for articles. Years later, in an interview with the media, Netanyahu clarified that he decided to do so to make it easier for Americans to pronounce his name. This fact has been used by his political rivals to accuse him indirectly of a lack of Israeli national identity and loyalty. In 1976, Netanyahu's older brother Yonatan Netanyahu was killed. Yonatan was serving as the commander of Benjamin's former unit, the Sayeret Matkal, and died during the counter-terrorism hostage rescue mission Operation Thunderbolt, in which his unit rescued more than 100 mostly Israeli hostages hijacked by terrorists and flown to the Entebbe airport in Uganda. In 1976, Netanyahu graduated near the top of his class at the M.I.T. Sloan School of Management. Early career. Netanyahu was headhunted to be an economic consultant for the Boston Consulting Group in Boston, Massachusetts, working at the company between 1976 and 1978. At the Boston Consulting Group, he was a colleague of Mitt Romney, with whom he formed a lasting friendship. Romney described Netanyahu at the time as a strong personality with a distinct point of view, and said, "We can almost speak in shorthand. We share common experiences and have a perspective and underpinning which is similar." Netanyahu said that their easy communication was a result of B.C.G.'s intellectually rigorous boot camp. In 1978, Netanyahu appeared on Boston local television, under the name M.I.T, where he argued, "The real core of the conflict is the unfortunate Arab refusal to accept the State of Israel. For 20 years the Arabs had both the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and if self-determination, as they now say, is the core of the conflict, they could have easily established a Palestinian state." In 1978, Netanyahu returned to Israel. Between 1978 and 1980, he ran the Jonathan Netanyahu Anti-Terror Institute, a non-governmental organization devoted to the study of terrorism. The institute held a number of international conferences focused on the discussion of international terrorism. From 1980 to 1982, he was director of marketing for RIM Industries in Jerusalem. During this period Netanyahu made his first connections with several Israeli politicians, including Minister Moshe Arens. Arens appointed him as his deputy chief of mission at the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. while Arens was ambassador to the United States, a position he held from 1982 until 1984. During the 1982 Lebanon War, he was called up for reserve duty in Sayeret Matkal and requested to be released from service, preferring to remain in the U.S. and serve as a spokesperson for Israel in the wake of harsh international criticism of the war. He presented Israel's case to the media during the war and established a highly efficient public relations system in the Israeli embassy. Between 1984 and 1988, Netanyahu served as the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations. Netanyahu was influenced by Rabbi Menachem M. Schneerson, with whom he formed a relationship during the 1980s. He referred to Schneerson as the most influential man of our time. At this time Netanyahu became friends with Fred Trump, the father of future U.S. President Donald Trump. Leader of the opposition, 1993 to 1996. Prior to the 1988 Israeli legislative election, Netanyahu returned to Israel and joined the Likud party. In the Likud's internal elections, Netanyahu was placed fifth on the party list. Later on he was elected as a Knesset member of the 12th Knesset, and was appointed as a deputy of the foreign minister Moshe Arens, and later on David Levy. Netanyahu and Levy did not cooperate and the rivalry between the two only intensified afterwards. During the Gulf War in early 1991, the English-fluent Netanyahu emerged as the principal spokesman for Israel in media interviews on CNN and other news outlets. During the Madrid Conference of 1991 Netanyahu was a member of the Israeli delegation headed by Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir. After the Madrid Conference Netanyahu was appointed as deputy minister in the Israeli Prime Minister's office. Following the defeat of the Likud party in the 1992 Israeli legislative elections, the Likud party held a party leadership election in 1993, and Netanyahu was victorious, defeating Benny Begin, son of the late Prime Minister Menachem Begin, and veteran politician David Levy 64. Sharon initially sought Likud party leadership as well, but quickly withdrew when it was evident that he was attracting minimal support. Shamir retired from politics shortly after the Likud's defeat in the 1992 elections. Following the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin at the end of a rally in support of the Oslo Accords, Rabin's temporary successor Shimon Peres decided to call early elections in order to give the government a mandate to advance the peace process. Netanyahu was the Likud's candidate for prime minister in the 1996 Israeli legislative election, which took place on May 29, 1996, and were the first Israeli elections in which Israelis elected their prime minister directly. Netanyahu hired American Republican political operative Arthur Finkelstein to run his campaign, and although the American style of sound bites and sharp attacks elicited harsh criticism, Netanyahu won the 1996 election, becoming the youngest person in the history of the position and the first Israeli prime minister to be born in the State of Israel. Yitzhak Rabin was born in Jerusalem, under the British Mandate of Palestine, prior to the 1948 founding of the Israeli state. Netanyahu's victory over the pre-election favorite Shimon Peres surprised many. The main catalyst in the downfall of the latter was a wave of suicide bombings shortly before the elections. On 3 and March 4, 1996, Palestinians carried out 2 suicide bombings, killing 32 Israelis, with Peres seemingly unable to stop the attacks. During the campaign, Netanyahu stressed that progress in the peace process would be based on the Palestinian National Authority fulfilling its obligations, mainly fighting terrorism, and the Likud campaign slogan was, Netanyahu, making a safe peace. However, although Netanyahu won the election for prime minister, Peres's Israeli Labour Party received more seats in the Knesset elections. Netanyahu had to rely on a coalition with the ultra-Orthodox parties, Shas and UTJ, in order to form a government. Rise to power. Army captain. In 1967, Netanyahu joined the Israeli army and soon became an elite commando who served as captain during the 1973 Arab-Israeli War. Ambassador. In 1982, Netanyahu was appointed deputy chief of mission at the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. In 1984, he was appointed Israel's ambassador to the United Nations. Deputy Foreign Minister. In 1988, Netanyahu was appointed as Deputy Foreign Minister in the cabinet of then Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir. Likud Chairman. Rising to the post of the right-wing Likud party's chairman in 1993, Netanyahu orchestrated the party's return to political power after its defeat in the 1992 election. Later on, Netanyahu lost the Likud leadership to Ariel Sharon, and regained it only after Sharon left Likud to form Kadima in 2005. Prime Minister. He served as Premier from 1996 to 1999 and a record 12-year tenure from 2009 to 2021. This month marks his 6th term serving as Prime Minister. Marriages and relationships. Netanyahu lighting Hanukkah candles on the first night in the Prime Minister's office in Jerusalem with his wife, Sarah, and their sons, Yair and Avner, 1996. Netanyahu has been married 3 times and has been involved in multiple extramarital affairs. Netanyahu's first marriage was to Miriam Weitzman, whom he met in Israel. Weitzman lived near Yonatan Netanyahu's apartment in Jerusalem, where Netanyahu was based during his military service. By the time Netanyahu's service was finished, Weitzman had completed her own military service as well as a degree in chemistry from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. In 1972, they both left to study in the United States, where she enrolled in Brandeis University, while Netanyahu studied at M.I.T. They married soon afterward. The couple had 1 daughter, Noah, born April 29, 1978. In 1978, while Weitzman was pregnant, Netanyahu met a non-Jewish British student named Fleur Cates at the university library, and began an affair. His marriage ended in divorce soon after Miriam discovered the affair. In 1981, Netanyahu married Cates, and she converted to Judaism. After moving with Netanyahu to Israel, Cates sued for divorce in 1988. His third wife, Sarah Ben-Artzi, was working as a flight attendant on an El Al flight from New York to Israel when they met. She was in the process of completing a master's degree in psychology. The couple married in 1991. They have 2 sons, Yair, born July 26, 1991, a former soldier in the IDF spokesperson's unit, and Avner, born October 10, 1994, a National Bible champion, winner of the National Bible Quiz for Youth in Kiryat Shmona, and former soldier in the IDF Combat Intelligence Collection Corps. In 1993, Netanyahu confessed on live television to having an affair with Ruth Bar, his public relations advisor. He said that a political rival had planted a secret video camera that had recorded him in a sexually compromising position with Bar, and that he had been threatened with the release of the tape to the press unless he quit the Likud leadership race. Netanyahu and Sarah repaired their marriage, and he was elected to the leadership of Likud. In 1996, the media reported that he had a 20-year friendship with Catherine Price Mondadori, an Italian-American woman. Netanyahu has been suffering from right bundle branch block, RBBB, since around 2003. On July 22, 2023, a pacemaker was implanted in his body. A hernia was discovered on him in March 2024. His personal physician and close friend is the Romanian-born pediatricist Herman Berkovits. Thank you for watching this video.